to the Cards and Comic Show.
Welcome back to Cards and Comics, and today I am going to have another in my series of, I call these kind of my hobby talk videos, which I don't really have a good name for them. I'm not a name kind of guy. But what I am going to do, though, is I am going to talk about two specific topics. One is I just got my first PSA grading order back for the first time in 4 years. And they charged me $900 more than the original invoice amount, or the upcharge was $900. So I'll go through that order and kind of share with you what I think about that. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the difference between comic book and sports card rarity, and how comic book collectors think about rarity versus card collectors, right? And what the reality is between the two. So we'll start here with my PSA order, which I got back yesterday. I submitted a regular order, so this was $100 per card, and I was upcharged for 3 of the 4 cards, a total of $900 in total from the original invoice. So I'll go through the cards that they upcharged me on. So first card that they upcharged me on was this Otani Sapphire rookie card. It graded a 10. So I get that. This card is an over $2,000 card. So I understood that. That makes sense. If it graded a 9, it would not have been an upcharge. So we were all copacetic there. The next card it didn't upcharge me on was this Tom Brady refractor, black, and graded an 8. And the back of it, which is hard to see, I don't know if you guys can see that, but you can see, if you really squint, right there, you can kind of see the foil on the back. The stamping is a little light. Some of the foiling is missing. I think that contributed to that card being an A, because other than that, it's a beautiful card. So didn't disagree with that card either. So we're 2 for 2, but then we kind of get into the weird upcharge phase here. So they charged me $300 for this card here. This is a Wolverine Royal Foil Pattern 2, numbered to 10. And I understand this card a little bit. I can get 50% there with them on this card. I think, obviously the Marvel cards are starting to go down a little bit. This card is Wolverine. It is numbered to 10. I have an offer of $3,000 on the card. So, okay, I can get behind it. It's only an 8. So there you go. It's only an 8. So it definitely doesn't give it a premium. It's almost like it's a raw card at this point. But okay. So 3 out of the 4 I'm okay with. I'm not overly happy that I got 2 upcharges, but I understand it. The fourth card here, I'm a little less happy. I complained. I did try to argue a case that they used the wrong valuation, and surprisingly, they admitted they did not use a 1-to-1 valuation. So it's this card here. It's the Royal Foil Spider-Man, numbered to 25, graded a PSA 8. And when they did the valuation, I was very confused because I did not find any really recent sales of this card, especially over that $2,000 or $3,000 mark, to warrant a $600 grading fee for this card. $600, guys. It's crazy. And when I talked to the person, because when they upcharge you, you have to agree to it. They can't just bill you. You have to agree to it, right? When I talked to them, they said, well, because I questioned, I said, what did you use for a comp? Because I cannot find a comp for this card that is that high. And they said basically that they used a Miles Morales comp of a similar number card from the same set, and they used that card to estimate the value of this card, which I had two problems with. I said, one, it's Miles Morales is a different character. He has a different fan base. Probably a little hotter than Peter Parker right now. And his cards are selling a little bit higher. And the cards are going down in general. If you were to sell those cards in March, February, March, and in early April, they're not going to sell what they do right now in May, or soon to be May, right? So that's an issue that basically they're taking this kind of an opportunity to kind of stick it to me, on the card a little bit because they know it's not worth as much now as it was a month ago, but they've got this recent comp of a rare card. But the thing that sucks is that it's not even a real comp. It's some other card. It's like saying, well, Miles Morales and Peter Parker are the same character because they both share the same name, Spider-Man. And that's not true. I think you have different fan bases, different collectors, different willingness to pay more money for certain characters. So I didn't agree with it. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, I think $600 upcharge is fairly ridiculous for a card that you're already paying $100 for, just to get graded, and then to add on that. I don't know what this card will sell for. Like I said, I got an offer of $3,000 on the Wolverine. I don't have anyone really interested in this card yet. I don't know if it's a $5,000 card or not, which is what they're telling me it is. So there's that. So that's kind of part one. Let me know what you think. There's another thing I'm going to be doing pretty soon. So I got into the lottery with PSA, and I have an idea to do some a video or to do some fun, crossover type video. And I've got these two cards here. So I've got this 72 Hank Aaron PSA 7.5. I also have a 72 PSA 8. PSA 8 both from CSG. So I've got 1, 2 CSG slab vintage cards. There you go. One's an Aaron, one's a Maze, 7.5 and an 8. Now, my original thought was just to break them out and send them to SGC and kind of see how SGC and SGC, or CSG and SGC compare, right? But now I've got this 20 card PSA order I got to fill, and I'm going to do that this weekend. And maybe I should send them into PSA and see how CSG compares to PSA. Let me know in the comments what you guys think I should do. Should I break those out and send them to PSA or SGC? And I will do a video on it, kind of cataloging how hard they are to crack, putting them in a holder, shipping them off, getting the results back, and comparing graders and seeing how tough CSG is on vintage compared to PSA or SGC. Let me know what you guys want me to do, and I will hopefully get some comments, and I'll kind of evaluate it and do something that's hopefully popular and get a video out there that you guys want to see. So there's that. Now let's go to the second part of the video. So I'm going to do some camera manipulation here. Here we go. We are back in. What I wanted to go over here is a little bit of a video and my thoughts a little bit on this idea of card rarity versus comic book rarity. And what I want to do is kind of go into the idea, or think about, adjust my mic a little bit here. What I'm going to really get into is this idea that comic books and card collectors have the same idea around rarity, and I really don't think they do. And I'm going to use some examples here. But this came from an interview with Rolling with FD on with Spidey Jew, and I'll play the clip and I'll kind of talk about it. So let's roll the clip now. So you heard Spidey Jew talk about the idea that Marvel cards have stated print runs that are much lower than comic books, which is true. That you could go out and find a whole bunch of comic books. And this is a theory that's been out there for a while. This idea that there's these warehouses full of variants and rare comics. And I'll talk about where this came from to start, because I'm a member of the CGC forums, and I've been on a lot of forums around comic books. And this idea around variant comic books has been out there for a long time. And this is kind of the thought is, a lot of people think the 1 in 10 and the 1 in 25 and the 1 in 50 variants, are printed at some sort of ratio, commiserate with the print run of the other comics. And what we found, through lots of digging by other collectors, it's not me doing this research. You can go and look it up on these other forums, CGC, for example, and you'll see that really what happens is they print a certain amount of those books, basically a minimum order quantity. And we'll talk about that a little bit further. And then when the retailer orders 50 books, they get the 1 in 10, they get 5 of those, they get 2 25s and the 1 in 50, and then there you go. They're able to get those books. So there is how they get those books. So that is, but the amount they printed isn't based on how much was ordered, right? They don't really know how many people are going to order of a book before they have to print it. So they just print a whole bunch of the variants, and or they print a certain amount, and then they kind of dole them out based on the orders, right? And this has come up many times because throughout the last 5 or 10 years, there's been multiple instances of variants popping up in different places, such as there was the Five Below retail repacks that had crazy variants in them that were the most notable was the first appearance of Silk, right, in Spider-Man, like ASM 4, the kind of 20 reboots later, ASM 4 with the first Silk variant there, which was very valuable, right? That came in, people were getting those in Five Below packs. Just recently, there was, a lot of really rare, and the one that got people was the comic book store variants, like variants that should have only gone to a certain store were popping up in these Walmart repacks, right? And even on my channel, I have a video where I opened up a bunch of those Walmart repacks and pulled 2 1 in 1,000 Phil Jimenez, I believe it was him, covers, of the same book. I pulled 2 of them, 2 1 in 1,000s in these repacks. And how did that happen? Well, it's because Diamond just had these books, the leftovers, if a bundle of comics, let's say one box of comics is 200 and only 5 people ordered 1,000 of that book and they got that 1 in 1,000, then you still got 200 or so of those books left over. And when they did the repacks, they just kind of found what was left over in the warehouse and just kind of packed them out. And there was a lot of controversy about that, but that's the theory around that. There's all these comic books somewhere in some warehouse just waiting to be found. That is a very common thought in the modern variant collecting world that, when I collect a lot of variants, if you look at my channel and what I collect in terms of modern, I collect mainly first appearances and cool variants of artists and characters I love. And so I'm a Spider-Man collector, so I have I believe it's 678, the Mary Jane Venom cover. And that was the big one that people really had debates about. How many was printed? How many was ordered? Could there be a giant warehouse sitting full of them somewhere that in 10 years, or the Del Otto Spider-Man, cover, that's really rare. It's some guy could be sitting on 500 of them and destroy the value. And that's sort of what Spidey Juice talking about. Hey, we don't really know how many of these things were printed. We don't know if there's some guy sitting in a warehouse. However, that idea has never ever happened. We've never seen a giant cache of variant comics outside of these repacks, which, and again, it wasn't like every repack had one. It was like randomly one of these really rare would pop up. So it wasn't like some guy just found a whole box of them just sitting around. It was like a few of them showed up in a repack. That's the closest thing that of this tall tale, I guess, in comic book collecting that's ever happened, right? And so I do believe it's sort of a myth. I think it's not something that's really happened. But he's using this as a way to say, well, cards have stated print runs, and we know how many there are. So they're, from a rarity standpoint, better. Like they're better from a rarity standpoint because we know more about them, right? But there's comic books now that have stated rarities, right? So if you look at comic books, I'm going to pull two up right here. As I scroll through my eBay here, you've got this Todd McFarlane, right? This King Spawn, and in the Spawn Age video, he talks about this comic specifically, that he bought this comic book because there was a stated print run. He likes Todd McFarlane. Great, I love Todd McFarlane too. I love his art. I love the fact that he did this, right? $400 for this comic book seems pretty cool, all right? If this was a sports card, you'd say, hey, this is like a major OG creator, Hall of Famer, and it's autographed, so it's great. But there's, almost 1,700 of these books made. 1,700, so just keep that number in mind. And it's based on how many was ordered and same ratio and everything. So like, so many people had to order so many of these books, and every 250 you got one of these signed ones. And they made sure that they didn't overprint them, and the rest were destroyed. And so, exactly this many was made. So it was a big deal about it, right? A lot of stories were printed about it. And so that, is 1,700. But if you go to, I'll just show here Marvel cards. Like, if you look at Marvel cards numbered to 25, there's a ton of them too, right? And the idea that you've got, cards here that are numbered to 25, so 1,700 versus 25. And you can see some of these are bringing a lot more than $400. There's a Stan Lee autograph bringing roughly what that, printed to 1,700 Spawn book was. So you can say, well, it's Leaf, Stan Lee, Leaf, Todd McFarlane, whatever. So the point is that in the card world, and this is the fact, guys, this is a fact, and we'll talk about it in just a second, that printing in the cards right now, anything that's numbered higher than 25 really isn't rare. And, specifically things like PMGs that have print runs of 199 or 100, they're not rare. They're not rare enough to maintain a huge premium. They can be expensive. They can cost a few $100s, but they shouldn't cost $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 like we saw some of them selling for earlier this year. So that was not realistic or a real price point for a card that's printed to 100 or 200, right? And that's been my experience in the history of my collecting since the early 2000s. When printing and numbering of cards, rare cards, cards numbered well below 100 started, happening more and more. The Bowman Chrome Golds, top gold cards, were 50, and the orange were 25, and the reds were 5, right? Once you got to that 25, 5, and 10 rarity, those cards are pretty rare, pretty hard to get, and were major premiums. But anything above that, not quite as rare and not quite as premium. But man, compared that to comic books, which are printed to 1,700 to be rare, it's a real difference. And I think it's not the same. And here's another one, this Jla Avengers Initiative, right? So this was printed recently to 7,000, right? And you're seeing the book's already bringing $150 to $200 in the marketplace. It's come down a little bit, but you can see right there it was bringing $200. People were really going nuts because George Perez is sick and he's probably going to not make it much longer. And so this was to help, get him out there and, with the Here Initiative to help him, and wanted to get this book out there. And they stated it will never be reprinted because DC and Marvel just hate each other and they will never print this again. So people went nuts and got this book, right? But, the issue here, and besides the fact that sports card collectors view rarity much differently, is this: the majority of sports cards that are rare and worth something are generally around the idea that most of them either are just the greatest player, like Spider-Man, King Griffey, Michael Jordan, and they're rare, or they're rookie cards, or they have some other meaning. And the issue I have with Marvel cards right now in rarity is that a lot of them have no meaning outside of just they're rare or cool looking, right? Which is fine. Cool looking is great. Rarity is fine. But in sports cards, a lot of times the really expensive cards, the cards that, really people go nuts for, have another factor, which is they're a rookie card. They have something, more built into that price point. So in the idea of, thinking about rookie cards, I just Googled, Spider-Man and rookie card, right? And I started looking to see, what happens if you just Google that. Will you actually get cards that could be his rookie card? And you get like the 1990 set, which I know there's cards earlier than that, Spider-Man. Even on the images here, you can kind of go through. Do you see something that looks like it could be the rookie card? I don't see it. But even when you go down to the bottom, where you get related searches, it brings up 94, 95, 1990. There is no real thing as, Spider-Man rookie cards, right? We do know there's cards made earlier than 1990 of Spider-Man. So I think, no one really is promoting, one card as being the rookie card. But when you get to someone like Willie Mays, you see 51 Bowman, 52 Topps. You see like specific cards being shown and promoted as his rookie card, right? And that makes those cards just that much more special, right? And, it makes those cards, and even if they have high print runs, more than just a card. And that's the same thing for comic books, right? A lot of times these comic books with these high print runs, but they're the first appearance of these iconic characters, will always be worth tons more than a numbered 10 rookie card, right? Or 10 card. So it's very similar to if you've got a PMG green of Wolverine, great, that's going to be worth thousands of dollars probably. I don't disagree. But it'll never be worth what a high grade comic book rookie, Hulk 181 or 180, depends. I'm not gonna get into that debate. But it'll never be in that value range, right? Because that card can be reprinted 20 or 30 different times as a different, version of that card, while the true first appearance of a comic book character can only really happen once. So, just trying to put it out there, guys, that rarity in comic books and sports cards is really different. And what's truly rare for a comic book may totally be different than a card. Numbered to 1,000 in the comic book world is very rare. If you tie in a first appearance with that, you're talking a comic book worth a lot of money if it's a true rare first appearance. In comic card world, since we don't really talk about rookie cards for comic book characters, or it's just a card, unfortunately, then it goes down to aesthetics and other factors to make the card worth something versus it being a first appearance or a rookie. So that's the real main differences, in my opinion, between card collecting and comic book collecting, is that until cards are considered to be first appearances or rookies for these characters, which is hard to really think about, I think, for a lot of people, they'll never achieve that level of let's say, value that first appearance comic book would. So really the rarity is kind of a red herring. So that's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think. Again, let me know what you think about my grading order. Do you want me to send those cards to SGC, those two CSG 72 Maze and Aaron cards, or to PSA? Let me know in the comments. And hopefully you like the series. I like the interaction, comment live. My goal is to eventually turn this into a live stream at some point and have a conversation with folks in a live format. As soon as I get my camera issues and lighting and everything kind of figured out how to work this technology, I'll probably do that a little bit. I've done a few live streams and they've been highly unsuccessful in terms of just technology for me. I figured this out on my own, and I wish my kids were smarter in this because I wish they could help me out, but I'm kind of winging this. So, but that's it, guys. I hope you have a great weekend and hope you watched the draft. It was entertaining, and I'll see you next time on Cards and Comics. Bye.